cEDH podcast, Mana Based. I'm Keen, otherwise known as Varless, and joining me, as always, is Adam, otherwise known as Poppyphobia. Today,
What's up,
we have the big bear himself.
We're not doing that, I guess.
Fuck you,
Good
Adam.
fuck, bro.
We have
It was
the big
such a
bear
good
himself,
intro.
otherwise known as Tashu. Anyways, we're hopping right into it. But before we do, Adam, I think we have some triggers to resolve in our upkeep.
Yeah, that was awesome. Clearly,
Skip the game action.
yeah, we're clearly not rusty from last time. So, yeah, to start off, speaking of, I want to apologize. All of us would like to apologize for the late upload. We haven't uploaded a podcast in about a month here. We've kind of been swamped after chaos and everything. Scheduling's been really hard for us, trying to get all the team together to record episodes. So, yeah, hopefully after this week we'll be back to our schedule. We've been saving up the Patreon money that we've been getting. We're going to buy a bunch of stuff to do a gameplay setup so we can start putting gameplay stuff on the channel. So we're actually really excited for like all the new stuff that we got going on. So look forward to that. Otherwise, let's move to our upkeep. So to start with, we're going to shout out all of our high-tier patrons. We got some new ones since the last time we had an episode, so it's really awesome to see. Thank you to Doot, Usable Object, Senator Tom, Scorish, Sora Flower, Jeff Bezos, and Domino. The support from everybody's been amazing, and it helps us to keep making these videos. Finally, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe. And for those of you listening on a podcast platform like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure you leave us a review and a rating because it helps us to reach new audiences. And with that, I think we're going to move on to the main phase. So for this episode, we are going to be talking about the importance of mana base in cEDH. We did a deck building episode. I think it was like our 5th episode or something like that. But we didn't really speak on the importance of mana base in general. So we thought that it deserved its... Number 12. Okay, I was way off then. But we thought that it deserved its own episode. And so with that, we'll get right into the main topic. So I think the overarching question that we have in regards to mana base and cEDH, and one that we see all the time in every Discord that we're in, no matter what deck you're talking about, it's always, what's the optimal amount of lands that I should be running in my deck? And I think that's a question that is not very easy to answer because it changes, like, no matter what fucking deck you're playing. But I know that we have some like really strong opinions about what we think a minimal land count is, what we think a maximum land count is, and we kind of fight internally in our play group and in our brew circle about that shit all the time. So I won't share my opinions right away, but I know someone who's very passionate about mana base and cEDH is our boy Kevin over here. So I'll let him kind of lead off the discussion.
Well, okay. I guess we'll start it off with a simple one of how you actually build your mana base, right? Like, how does your overall, like, Pip total or what, like, your mana requirements, how does it affect what lands you put in, obviously? Because, like, you can bitch about numbers all day, and I will. But, like, how do you pick which ones you use, right? Like, oh, I just throw in all the 5-color lands. Like, what if you don't need them? What if your 2-color deck is really a 1-color deck that splashes another color? What if your
some of the
5-color
lands are fucking ass too?
Yeah, a lot of them are. But like, you know, you're playing fucking blue farm, right? You're not really playing white. I mean, like, you are, but you're not. So like, you don't go as hard on as many white lands as you do, say, black lands. So, Kian, let's start with you. How do you start picking lands for your decks?
All right, so I like the deflection. You've been really learning a lot from our political episodes. No, I'm joking.
No, it's just funny because
So,
you're like, what's the difference between the white lands and the black lands? Well, there's 5
Black
other
lands.
colors. And
All right,
Come
so
on,
anyways.
bro. I'm just picking colors. I mean, it's a deck that runs both colors.
All right, so I think
Christ almighty.
that I'll start with optimal. I'll say the most optimal lands I feel for decks is between 27 and 28. I really don't think, especially in like today's cEDH climate, there's just way too many cards that you can be running, and all like the general mana bases or the CMC of most decks are pretty like low, so you don't need to be ramping out big dumb idiots. Like there's too many slot. If you run like 30, I think there's only one deck that should run 30 lands, and that's Gitrog, and that has an excuse. Any other deck?
Gitrog runs way more than 30 lands.
Okay, like 30, whatever. I think there's like.
I don't know. I think that number changes constantly. So, like, for me, I think that if you're running any type of strategy that's trying to win the game at a very fast pace, you can start cutting lands, like, super significantly. Especially if you're running, like, a lot of acceleration, whether that be dorks, whether that be mana rocks, whether that be soul lands. Like, there's so many types of acceleration when it comes to your mana base that you don't need to be running an exuberant amount of lands, right? Something that I think is a little bit like underrated is the type of archetype or strategy that your deck is playing in. So like stacks decks, I think stacks decks can easily run 30 lands, sometimes run even more, especially if you're like a stacks deck that doesn't have colors that you can ramp in. So like mono white is really, really hard to ramp in, especially if you're not on like a very like strategic type of strategy. Like if you're on a enchantment strategy, then sure you can run like Sarah Sanctum and it's the white Gaia's Cradle, but other than that, like it's really, really hard to accelerate your mana, especially with
that's
go on.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Like it's archetype dependent, but for like other archetypes besides stacks is kind of like the outlier. But every other deck either has mana acceleration and mana rocks or dorks. So those are all mana sources. So you don't really need to be running like 30 to 31 lands in like a Grixis deck. You have mana rocks, or in another
or
green
rituals.
Deck that's not
I mean,
yeah,
so
rituals
that gets
and
into
mana dorks.
That gets into my ideas. I don't actually really give a fuck how many lands you run, right? Like lands, I agree with you. Lands are like bad. They're fucking bad cards. Like they don't do anything except make mana, and you can only play one a turn, so like they're kind of shitty, right? So like I care more about the concept of a mana source, and to me, there's two types of mana sources. There's fast ones, like untapped lands, 0 and 1 mana artifacts that make more than what they cost. Rituals are often fast. And then there's slow ones like the dorks, and then like some kind of weird, like the soul lands that make like 2, but they come in tapped, like the weird shit. So for me, it's more important that you have a total amount of mana sources you can rely on. Like if you run 15 mana rocks and you can reliably play damn near all of them on turn 1, that's kind of like you're running 27 lands plus 15 mana rocks, which, together you're like, oh, I have like 43 mana sources or whatever. Like, that's not bad, that looks like a more reasonable list. But if you come in and fucking tell me you're running 6 mana rocks and 21 lands, like, I'm just going to call you a dipshit. Like, you're never going to be able to cast your cards. Like, and for me, I'm purely math-based, right? Like, we can talk about shit all day long about how decks feel certain ways and whatever. You just run a hypergeometric calculator. That's all you do. You decide how many mana sources you can realistically play on turn 1, you slam that shit into the calculator, and you accept, okay, cool, 72% chance I can play the game. 28% of the time I'm mulliganing because of my lands being shitty or my mana being shitty. That's a choice you make. I personally go a little higher. I still like running those mana rocks, but if you run a low mana rock deck, obviously you got to bring your lands up or your dorks up or something. But in general, for me, I don't like mulliganing good hands because I had the wrong lands or that I just didn't have enough lands. Like, it feels terrible to lose a 1 in 4 all of the fucking time just because you don't have good lands.
Yeah, I think that like mulligan decisions being affected by lands is also kind of a issue that you get a feel for when you're playing the game. Something that I'll say is that like a lot of the times, like I'm not finding myself mulliganing like good hands because I'm not making enough mana, right? Like usually that's like. If you're saying like you run your mana base through a geometric calculator, and if you get a 78% chance that like you'll have 2 lands in your hand on a mulligan, it's like that seems way too high to me. Like you get a free mulligan in the first place. Like so I would be like almost saying like I would like I think your mulligans are fine up until 5. Once you mulligan down to 5, then it's like okay, this is risky. But like 5 cards in my hand never feels bad, especially when it's a sculpted 5.
Let me fucking get a thing up real quick, right? Let's say you have a 75% chance that you get 2 like mana sources. We'll just run and pretend we have 75% chance to get 2 mana sources or more in any given hand, right? With 7 cards. So you just run that through 3 times. Our chance of failure is 25%. So what's the chance that I fail 3 times in a row, i.e. mull to 5? It's going to be 25 times 25 times 25. It's about a 98.5% chance you get a playable hand by your 6-hand mulligan, right? That's not too bad. Let's go ahead and lower that down to 65% chance. You know, you're now going to run. You've bumped yourself up to a 4% chance to have to go down to, or like 4.3% chance to have to go down to 5, which isn't big, but that's a 1 in 20 almost. Like.
But what's the land count difference though? That's like what I'm.
I mean, again, we'd have to sit down and do actual math homework, and I don't think anyone here wants to do that. But like,
I'm going to throw some numbers. I'm going to pull some numbers out of my
random
ass.
Obscure numbers into this calculator.
I can throw it right here. I can show you.
Hey guys, here at Naus, we value honesty and truth. So, anyways, I started plugging in numbers in my calculator.
Okay, you take 0.35 and multiply it times itself 3 times. Fucking
yeah, that's
subtract it
cool.
from 1.
What does that do? What does that
It
do?
tells you the probability that you have to throw away to mull to 5.
How many lands am I running to dictate that number?
The 0.35% number.
Probably about 27 or 28, right?
We didn't know. We
didn't know that, though.
Fine, motherfucker. I'm going to pull up a hypergeometric calculator right now and waste 6 minutes on this.
And then another point I wanted to add. So when we'll be mentioning soul lands a lot in this episode, and for those of you that don't know what soul lands are are any lands like Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, Crystal Vein. It's lands that come in untapped and can tap for 2 mana.
Yeah, so like I guess to get back on topic a little bit.
Get back.
When we're discussing like your mana base in cEDH, I feel like people harken on it way too much because like people will look at a scenario where like you'll show somebody a list and they'll be like, oh my gosh, why are you on 29 lands? You should be on 27 lands, and like that's 2 more card slots that you could have in your deck list right now, and yada yada yada. And honestly, it just depends on your feel when you're playing a deck. Like I found that 28 is a really good number for me, and if I run a lot of mana rocks and a lot of acceleration, I'll go down from that point. But like I know people all the time that are like consistency matters to me more than anything, and I'd rather have 3 lands in my hand and good spells than 1 land and it's all gas, and that's true, and it happens a lot, right? Like you want to have lands in play because if you get hit with a oof or you get hit with a Stony Silence, like now all of a sudden your gas hand is turned off, and it can be really really shitty. If there's a rule of law in play, your 1 land into 2 rituals into Ad Naus isn't good anymore because you can't ritual off. Right? So there's like a fine balance there between how many lands do you run, because statistically what you want to be doing is you want to be putting a land down every turn that you can. It's literally a free spell basically, because in cEDH, mana is a resource that we equate to the spells that we cast simply because so many of our spells are dedicated to just producing mana. So if you consider a land to just be a free spell every turn that generates 1 mana, that's really what it is. So it's hard to balance that resource number, especially when like we're really running so many less lands in our deck than we should be. When you consider like how many lands that 60 cards players will play in their decks, and then how many lands we play as 100 card players, it's actually like we're way low on what we should be playing. Like it says like we should be running like 35 to 40 lands, and we're all running like 30 or less besides like a few decks. So it's kind of like interesting to see how mana bases are built, but it's because in cEDH your games aren't going past turn 3, and the consistency of like 2 lands being enough to win you the game is usually the case. That's just kind of how our format is built. So you don't need to be having your deck be 40% lands because you're not getting to that point. It's not like standard where you're going 12 turns and you need to hit a land trap every turn, So it's an interesting question, and I think it changes like so often and so much. But like I know for me personally, I really sit at like 28 lands is like my starting point, and I goldfish a shit ton, and I goldfish a lot, and I start to look at my hands and see what I'm missing and where I feel like I need it. And like you need to have lands that produce colored mana as well, because like some of the best lands in the game produce 2 mana as a colorless source, but they don't cast you any spells besides artifacts. So like I don't know, there's a real big balance there between like how you build your mana base, and it's kind of difficult to just like say like this is how many lands you should run in your deck, this is tried and true, and anything you do more or less than this is because you're an idiot. Like I don't think that that's a fair argument.
Yeah, I mean I think that's really generally what the final answer is that like you can argue all day about one land, and it will change your probability. And you can sit and you can literally calculate, like I am doing right now, how likely you are to mulligan just purely off of fucking up your lands. But, like, are you really worried about a 0.5% chance? Like, yeah, over 200 games, you're going to, like, effectively, like, lose the game because you mulled the 5 once. But, like, are you okay with that to, like, slightly increase your card quality? And, like, the answer is it's too hard to calculate. Like, you can do simple calculations of, like, how often will I mulligan, but you can't turn that into what's my win rate change. It's too hard. So for you, it is, I agree, more of a feel. Like, you're going to decide, like, am I pissed off because I just keep fucking not getting enough lands? Or are you like Spencer and you're like, I draw 7 lands every game. I'm sick of this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. That's up to you. That's your own personal decision. Or, hear me out, play Gitrog, run 54 mana sources, and just literally always be able to keep every hand.
I will say that, like, in green decks, dude, I've learned, like, I've been playing Tymna Thrasios for, like, a while now, and maybe we want to touch on, at some point, the decks that we're playing, because I know a lot of us have switched our decks, like, from when we first started recording these episodes. Like, we're on either new decks, old decks, or just, like, completely changed. Like, we're not playing the same decks that we started with. But, like, lately I've been playing, like, Tymna Thrasios, Hermit Druid, and playing green makes the shittiest hands so keepable. It's fucking ridiculous, because your play patterns are just land, dork, pass, and then you do something on turn 2. You have 2 mana, right? Like, it just makes, like, really bad hands really good.
It's the bait of mid range. Is almost every green mid range hand. You're like, yo, I could play a 3-drop on turn 2, and, like, you just keep the hand, and then you're like, I shouldn't have kept this shit as sucks.
You're like, I didn't even have a 3-drop to play. I don't know why I kept this hand.
I can play Tymna on turn 2. Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
The amount of turn 2 Ristic Studies I've cast is fucking. It's like a drug, man. I can't get over it.
Yeah, and that gets into a whole different discussion. I don't even know if we have planned of, like, you know, for like real cEDH, which is like tournament play, when you're gonna play like 7+ games to try to, you know, become the champion, put the crown on your head. Do you go for the tried and true, the fucking BGX Jund mid range that has a 55% win rate, right? Or do you do the fucking YOLO combo strategy that just flips coins all day and you hope you flip more heads than your opponents? Because that was a discussion in, like, you know, 60 card tournaments, is do you play the deck that's consistent and you're like, you have a good chance of getting there sometimes, or do you play the YOLO deck and just hope that you get good matchups and fucking slide up to first place? And I think that's another topic about cEDH tournaments we could discuss. Like, do you run Silas Rog and hope you just cream people because you go faster and you just drew 7 great fucking hands in a row in 7 games? Or do you play, like, your mid-range blue farm and you consistently win, but maybe that's not enough to get there? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that would be a topic for a different episode.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying this whole mana base thing,
yeah,
like, they're interlinked. They're the same fucking question with a different flavor.
For sure. And for reference of, like, a typical legacy deck runs, let's see, I pulled it up, 25 to 30 lands.
Out of 60?
And 60 cards.
That would equate to 41.6 lands in our format. We ain't playing that many.
No, we're not. So, Kevin, I think you want to ask the next question here.
Let's see, where are we at? Asked about the Pip Totals. Got Soul Lands. We done that one yet?
Well, we haven't really discussed pip intensity at all, so you can.
You see, because I asked that question, I was like, I'm pretty confused here. So yeah, so, like, how do you actually decide what lands you're going to play? Which is what I originally, you know, started off with. Like, I personally prioritize, like, I play a lot of 4-color lists, and I like 5-color too. I mean, you've probably heard. So obviously, I'm going to put every fetch in I can play. Like, fetches are just good. You put in pretty much all the duels you can play except Plateau, because that card fucking should have never been printed. You know, you're going to play a lot of the shocks that you should be playing. Maybe not all of them, but, like, I play Tymna Thras as well. Like, it's a bug deck with white, so I run all of the bug shocks, right? In Najeela, I need Thoracle mana, so I run Watery Grave, and I need fucking Najeela plus Dork mana, so I run, I think I run Stomping Ground. I might have changed. But, like, you know, I think you always run all of your available fetches. You run pretty much every duel you can. Some of the good shocks. And then you ask yourself, okay, well, I'm gonna run Command Tower, right? Like, it's pretty basic. But like, do you run Mana Confluence? Like, usually, but like maybe not always. Do you run the Horizon Canopy lands? Like, I don't know. Do I have too many Pain lands? Do I need more duels? Right? Like how do you evaluate lands and when you're deciding? Because like I definitely have gone through this problem of being like, do I want another Shock or do I want the Horizon Canopy land? Like, ooh, can I run Forbidden Orchard in this deck? Do I care if I give them a 1/1? Like, oh, can I run Tarnished Citadel? Like, how important is my Naus? Like, I'm a big Tarnished Citadel fan, but I know you guys aren't. So,
Yeah.
Adam can take it.
I think that I have a lot of opinions on this, so I'd like to go first. So, like, when it comes to, like, picking my mana base in cEDH, those factors weigh in so heavily to, like, the types of strategies I play. So you kind of touched on it earlier when you were saying that, like, oh, like, if you're a deck like Blue Farm, right, like, white isn't your color identity. But outside of, like, 3 very important spells, which are, like, possibly Grand Abolisher, Silence, Esper Sentinel, and Ranger Captain Vios, you're not really casting any white card besides Tymna for the majority of the game. So, like, how many white mana sources do you need in your list? Not a whole lot, because usually one white mana source and a gold land or a rock is good enough. So, like, in higher color density decks, so like 4 color and up, I think you have to prioritize the gold lands first. So when I refer to gold lands, I'm referring to lands that tap for all 5 colors. So like examples of this are like City of Brass, Command Tower. Decks that like historically have the gold borders around them usually indicate that they tap for 5 colors. If you're an artifact heavy deck, you can include lands like what's the one that you if you control an artifact you can tap it and lose a life?
Glimmer Void.
Not Glimmer Void.
Glimmer Void, and then there's the
Spire of Industry.
Spire of Industry, yeah. So like 5 color lands like that, I would usually prioritize first. Then I would get into like the duels that you need to play. So all the original duels. I would then go into the shocks. I would then go into like certain utility lands. So like there's certain duel lands that like the battle bond lands, the opponent lands. I think those lands are amazing in our format. Like the only downside is that they're like non-fetchable, but you can make that sacrifice for like just drawing them, right? And then after that, I usually prioritize like the Horizon lands, or then like utility lands that don't really do a whole lot, and then the fetch lands. And I think that the fetch lands are sometimes a little overvalued in our format, especially lately with like the prevalence of oof. Or not oof. Why did I say oof? The prevalence of Oppo makes like a lot of my fetch land hands so ass. And it's been like more and more prevalent lately. Like the more games I play, the more games end up having 2, sometimes 3 opposition agents in play. And it's kind of like backbreaking for majority of the game. So like, I think you try to keep down the fetch lands to like the absolute necessities. It's deck filtering too, which is something to consider. It's like you have 30 lands, but in actuality, you're really only casting 20 of them because 10 of them are fetches sometimes, you know?
I don't know. So, I feel like I'm going to disagree with you on the fetches here, because like, yeah, sure, your fetches can get punished, whatever, but like fetches are by far the strongest lands, like land cycle that has been printed. And that would be like arguing that like, oh, you shouldn't get a car, it might break down, you should walk instead. Like, I'll fucking take the risk. Like, yeah, it's gonna suck, but like, I don't give a fuck. I would much rather have that consistency.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm with Kevin on this one. When I first start with mana base, the first thing I look at is how many fetches do I need to run, and how many fetches can I play, and then what duels do I play. I think that's the most important, because fetches get you the mana sources, and they deck thin, and they're just really powerful in general.
I mean, the deck thinning in fetch lands I don't think is minor. I think like in cEDH, like that's like the best source of deck thinning comparative to like what other people will use as excuses for deck thinning. Fetch lands actually get 2 cards out of your deck every time that you play them. So I don't know. That's a lot.
It's a very. I've seen people do the math behind it. It's really small. But I don't think it's insignificant. I just think it's barely significant.
It's small. In other formats like 60 card, it's significant, but not really.
I think it is. People would argue, and they're like, "Oh, it's only a 1.7% chance over 1,000 games," and I'm like, "Yeah, bro, that's 17 fucking games. Like that's a big deal."
When you're running decks that only run 25 lands, every fetch land is such significant deck thinning, because you're removing 2 of those lands every time that you're playing a fetch land. If you've
Not really,
casted,
'cause you already had one in hand.
You already had one in your hand, so you're removing one.
I mean, I get your point, right? Like, I think it's there. I don't think it's super huge, but I think it's there. For me, I think you're not, like, immediate love of fetch lands, to me, says that you've never played a 5-color list that 100% cannot fucking stumble. Like, I don't even play the crazy YOLO Najeela, and, like, I literally have to have turn 1, I need red and green. Turn 2, I need blue and black and red and green. And then turn 3, I need white, white. And then turn 4, I need 2 more black. And, like, you can't fuck around. Like, you need to pick exact, very specific lands. And without the 10 fetches, like, you're just not going to get there consistently. There's not enough 5-color lands to fill in that, like, gap of needing these insane mana cost splits, right? Like if I want to cast Derevi on turn 3 after an Najeela, that is a minimum of 4 specific pips I need, not including probably the Black Tutor to get it, and the fucking counterspell to hold back up. Like, you need a lot of really, really difficult, like, brutal pips. So, I think fetches, by far, the one, like, I would take a fetch before a 5-color land. No cap.
I think it depends on.
I don't think I would ever do that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what list you're running, or what archetype. I think this
Let
whole.
me specify
this
non-command towers.
I mean, almost all the 5-color lands aren't.
I think this whole subject is. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. God damn it.
That's fine. I'll just interrupt you again. I think that all the 5-color lands.
The thing is.
Let Ian go.
He can't finish. Okay, I think that all the 5-color lands are so good. I prioritize 5-color lands in 2-color lists just because of the amount of, like, cards that you have that can steal cards from your opponent's deck that require you to pay the mana cost of the cards. Like, I don't know, man. I just think 5-color lands, like, every 5-color land that they print that's at all halfway decent immediately gets slotted into every deck that you see. So
I think this whole subject that we're talking about is, like, very subjective to the archetype that people want to play, right? So, and, like, different lands fit into the different archetypes, right? Because, like, if we're playing a 3-color plus pile, gold lands are fucking amazing, right? Gold lands do everything you need them to do. They're fucking great. But in, like, 2-color and, like, monocolor lists, they're dog shit. Like, why would you be running this instead of, like, a fetch land or, like, just, like, a basic, right? So,
because
I don't know.
Because it's way better than a basic.
I'm kind of with Kian. If you're running a black 2-color list, like, mana confluence after enough turns can fucking start to suck. Like,
why would you take damage? List,
it feels bad. Now, given I still would
just win the game faster. Yeah, just win the game, forehead. Mana confluence. You should only be able to mana confluence like 3 times. You lose 3 life. You took a bolt and then you won the game. Like, that's, that's how I look at it.
How many times have you done this, Adam?
You're arguing that Tarnished Citadel is also playable.
No, because Tarnished Citadel bolts you every time. So in 3 turns, that's 9 life. You took 3 bolts.
You should have just won the game by now, dude. You should have just won the game. Just do it.
Plus,
9 life over 3 life is
you should just won the game, dude. You should have won the game.
That's something that's actually, like, I think that colorless lands are fucking ass outside of the only 2 good colorless lands that exist, which are Ancient Tomb and City of Traders. Otherwise, colorless lands are not good. Like, Tarnished Citadel's argument of, like, well, it taps for colorless. Like, okay, how many mana rocks do you see people play that just tap for 1 colorless? None, okay, so because it's a fucking ass.
Colorless, man. The idea
Talisman
is
of Progress.
It's when you tap for Adnaz, if you already have your 2 black sources. It is a 5-color land that doesn't hurt you. That's my big argument.
But the problem is, like, you keep a 2-land hand and your second land is Tarnished Citadel, and then you're bolting yourself for 3 just to fucking cast.
Stop being a bitch and just fucking do it.
No,
I'm telling you, it's a good
one. I play Tarnished Citadel over, like, Spire of Industry or the.
If you don't run enough artifacts.
Or the creature.
I don't like conditional lands. Fuck that. I want a land that always fucking makes mana if I need it. Yeah, it sure hurts, but fuck it.
Just play a different land. There's so many lands in the game. You don't need to play Tarnished Citadel.
Play Tarnished Citadel.
I feel like the downside.
Don't encourage people to play Tarnished Citadel.
Tell me how Tarnished Citadel. Okay, the only Mana Crypt costs 0 mana, has the chance to bolt you every turn, doesn't, and produces twice as much mana as Tarnished Citadel. Why would I play Tarnished Citadel?
Because it's a land that makes 5 colors. Mana Crypt makes no colors. That's not even a comparable thing. You're like, why would I eat this banana when I can fucking take an airplane? That doesn't make any fuck sense. Like,
yeah, it does. I would rather take an airplane. I could fly to a forest full of bananas. Why would I eat the one banana?
Why don't you go do that? Why don't you fucking bada boom? Because you're fucking too dumb to have this podcast. Tarnished Citadel, good card.
I think
it's a 5 color land, and it's the same thing as the Painlands, right?
Forbidden Orchard is better than Tarnished Citadel, and Forbidden Orchard gives your opponents resources.
I agree, but for Forbidden Orchard is a good land because it makes 5 colors.
Oh my gosh!
All right, so Adam, I think you want to ask the next question.
Do I have the next question? Let me look. Okay. Here we go. This ties in perfect to what I was just saying. What is the importance of soul lands, and why are we as a format transitioning towards a greedier mana base? So, I think as this format is evolving, we're starting to see a bigger and wider acceptance of what the best decks in the meta are. Specifically, you look at decks like any of the Rograk decks, so Timna Rog, Silas Rog, any of these decks that
Rog is Pog. Rog is Pog.
Yes,
Did
Rog.
You abandon him?
No, we don't. We never abandon our boy. Okay, we just give him a break for a while and then come back. But
Bring him back.
City of Traders, Ancient Tomb. These are the traditional soul lands, and the reason why they're so good right now is because people are remember when we used to run signets because signets were good? Well, they have these things now called talismans, and they're just infinitely better and are unconditional and only ping you for 1. They're even better than Tarnished Citadel. So.
You know why? Because legitimately, no joke, that the ability to not always hurt you is good. It's a good fucking alternative cost. Go on.
Tarnished Citadel is just so bad, man. I can't
There's no fucking
can't believe you defend that card. So, anyways,
okay, the reason.
We're moving on. So, we're transitioning to a lot of greedier mana bases where, Ancient Tomb and City of Traders are valued so much higher because you can run, technically, the excuse is you can run less lands because you have those to cast your artifacts that get you there faster. So, imagine you're on the play and, in your hand you have a Talisman, an Ancient Tomb, and fucking Arcane Signet, and you draw a City of Traders. All of a sudden on turn 4 you're producing 5 mana. No, you're producing more. 1, 2. On turn 2 you're producing 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 5, 6 mana on turn 2. And it's that's a greedy ass mana base, and your City of Traders is literally ritualing itself off the battlefield the next time you play a land, but you're taking that trade because of the amount of value you got ahead of time. It's just I don't know. I think that as we transition to this faster meta where the game is speeding up, because I think that we're getting to an area where you're going to see less stacks decks being prevalent just because they're not winning as often, especially in tournament metas. They're not winning fast enough. And we're getting to a point where there's more time in round, or there's more rounds and draws aren't enough to get you there, that these greedier mana bases that try to take advantage of that short time system are going to just continue to perform at higher and higher levels. So that's why these lands are becoming much more prevalent and why they are so important. Even in decks that traditionally didn't run them, like I play Sacred Druid, they didn't play Ancient Tomb for the longest time. It feels bad. You're taking 2 damage every time. I'm yeah, but I get fucking twice as many Thrasios activations because I have an Ancient Tomb. I'm going to value that higher than fucking Colored Source because I'm put lands into play with Thrasios anyways. So it's shit like that people are kind of throwing on the scale and weighing one opinion over the other. And I just see it a lot. People didn't play City of Traders for fucking years, and now every turbo deck runs a City of Traders, and it's because it's a good card. It comes down for 2, comes down, taps for 2. The next turn it produces another 2, and then you get your land drop and you produce. It's I don't know. It's a ritual. So
yeah, when you play your 3rd land, you get a draw trigger.
Yeah, and I think, Adam, you touched on it. I think soul lands are great in ramp, especially in turbo decks, is ramping into the artifacts, which is then City of Traders is new tech. I guess you'd say maybe the last couple months, especially in the tournament settings, or the tournament meta. A lot of turbo decks like Blue Farm, Rog Sai are transitioning into City of Traders because they treat it as a ritual, not as a land drop. They play it as like a spell. So once you start having the mindset of, oh, this is like basically a ritual that sticks around instead of playing it as your land drop, really allows you to maximize the potential of that card. So,
plus, I think any deck that runs Reign of Filth should just run fucking City of Traders. Like, if you're already ready to throw your lands in the trash for mana, like, it does that by itself. It turns itself into garbage. Just play it. Like, it's a good land for a reason. I can't believe more decks didn't play it.
It is weird to see, like, people are, like, just now, like, oh, this is really good. And it's like, I mean, like, the only deck that played it consistently, I think, for a while was Godo. Because Godo was like, let's go Burr, baby. I'm trying to get as much mana as possible. And then some other lands, like Crystal Vein, like, all these lands that are just, like, kill themselves to produce mana or produce, like, multiple, like, colorless pips. It's simply just because, like, the meta is just getting so fast that, like, mana acceleration is the best thing you can be doing right now. And with the ability, yeah, it's.
I think that touches on a very interesting point, though. Like, part of the problem is that what happens when decks get super greedy? What happens when decks get really fast like this? You land 1 or 2 relevant stacks pieces, and then they lose the game. However, because you brought up the idea of tournaments, that's holding stacks decks back. And I get there's logistics to running a tournament. You don't want to watch a fucking stacks deck play its 4th 3-hour game in a row. But it is inherently, like, because there's the trifecta of the stacks, the turbo, and the mid-range, and then a little triangle, right? Well, when you time out the mid-range and the stacks, like, what fucking wins, right?
Well,
like,
so
there's no predator.
Well, so like, okay, stop, dude! You're peaking the audio so bad. So something that someone said on Twitter the other day that got pretty popular was like, there's only 2 archetypes, like there's only 2 truths to cEDH, and the truths are that the meta is either so turbo that it's just about, like, the game ends on the coin flip, and whoever wins the coin flip is most likely going to win the game, just because of the base that the way that these decks are built, right? And there's like here, actually, I have the quote right here. I want to read it correctly because I'm already butchering it like super bad. So this is what it is, right? There are 2 solved format states of cEDH. One where there's enough stacks to stop the turbo and mid-range stacks to stop the turbo decks, and the mid-range stacks killer decks reign supreme. And one with not enough stacks where the turbo decks crush everything. Notably, there's no right amount of stacks where stacks wins the game. And that seems to be kind of like the state that we're at right now with cEDH. It's like there's either enough stacks to stop turbo and then mid-range wins, or there's not enough stacks to stop turbo and then turbo wins. But stacks is never really winning. And I think that as, like, we're progressing as a format and more tournaments are happening and the game keeps progressing, the more true I think that gets.
I think that's especially true for tournament metas, like Kevin was talking about, because there's time and rounds. You can't just sit there and watch the stacks player. Like,
you can't activate your Thrasios 33 times and win the game because apparently people go slow. Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that I've gotten from other games, like, I played a lot of Hearthstone, like the wild format, for fucking like 10 goddamn years, so, like, I understand that game pretty in and out. I've played, like, a little bit of competitive Pokemon, like, I've played a moderate amount of Yu-Gi-Oh! The interesting thing about these decks that play lockdown, that play the no fuck you strategy, they don't typically win with, like, the straight out normal win, and they usually take a long time anyways, right? But most of them pivot to an alternative win condition, such as, like, forcibly milling you out, or, like, you know, just eventually getting a board state that you can't beat, which, like, Magic can do that too, but EDH pushes that so far that you're never going to win the mill game. That's just literally not a fucking strategy, right? Unless you brain freeze people, but that's a combo strat. Like, you're never going to win the beats game because we haven't printed a 1-mana 9/9 with hexproof and haste yet, because that would break the entire game of Magic. But it's about what you would need for cEDH to have a real beats plan. So, like, stacks decks don't have a real win condition. They just play the fuck you game and hope that they get there by, like, frustrating their opponents to death. I don't know. Like, it's not a good tournament strategy. Like, yeah, you can get there. I think stacks decks are good decks. They just don't have, like, they don't have their own breach. Like, they don't have a fucking, what's the cheese card? the chief stands alone. There's a real version of that card, or like Felidar Sovereign. That would be a cool win condition, right? Like that would be fucking awesome if it worked.
Divine
It would be
Intervention.
3 mana. Yeah, that's the one.
best
Yeah,
win
like-
condition of the game.
Right? So, like, Stacks decks need something like those printed that aren't ass, right? Like, you need to be able to land a Felidar Guardian, not Guardian, is it Guardian? Sovereign. Felidar Sovereign out of the command zone on turn 2 and be like, okay, well, you're under a rule law and a fucking null rod, and also you can't cast cards for 0. Like, you have to get rid of this in 1 turn cycle. Have fun. That's what Stacks decks need. They need a real chance to win the game, and that just doesn't exist. I don't think it'll ever exist. So, as you said, turbo and then shit that beats Stacks. Like, that's... The 2 fucking predators in the triangle have an unfair advantage because one of the corners is stupid, and when it's not stupid, it's held bound by tournament rules.
True.
Rant over.
Yep.
Rant over. All right.
Soul Land's good.
Soul Land's good. All right, we're moving
Frog
on
hipster deck.
to Flavor Text of the Week, where you guys are new listeners to the podcast. It's where I, Kian, try to stump the Sad Naus crew and you, the audience, with different cards from across Magic's history. So please use the spoiler text in our Discord channel, the Flavor Text Judge, and by next week. So the flavor text for you guys, I'm changing it up, the audience, will be: the old wizard's experiments destroyed the castle centuries ago. So why does some of the rubble look recent? I'll read it again. The old wizard's experiments destroyed the castle centuries ago. So why does some of the rubble look recent? All right.
You know, that's one of the better flavor texts I've heard in a while. It tells a very good story in like 1 to 2 sentences.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
I
our
thought it
flavor
was-
text?
I thought it was good.
No.
That's
Stop
serious. All
fucking
right.
texting your Twitter thoughts and fucking pay attention.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
fucking moron.
I was getting I got sent a meme. I got sent a meme.
Yeah, sure.
Fucking tell your mom hi and fucking pay attention on the podcast.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
No. But yes.
I give you guys an obscure one that you guys will never get, or
Scryfall.com.
okay, bet. As
No,
you
no,
gaze
don't
down,
give us
okay.
don't give us a Scryfall one. We'll give us a good one.
Yeah.
A retreat
Scryfall,
to nature can inspire even the most jaded inventor. A retreat to nature can inspire even the most jaded inventor.
A
Gotta be
retreat.
blue-green.
So-
There's no way that it's not blue-green.
So the inventor part should be a giveaway for you guys.
Inventor's fair. No,
I was about to say the same thing. Inventor.
set-wise.
Who are in set wise inventors?
Where
Oh,
are inventors
Kaladesh.
from?
Is that
almost
where
certainly Kaladesh. Or Aether Revolt, whichever one. I don't know.
Kaladesh Plain.
the
Fatal
Kaladesh-
Push. Blue, it's gotta be... Oh, God. What's a... Is it in... It can't be Indomitable Creativity. I know that card's kind of thought about.
What the
This
hell
is
is
a
this?
cEDH staple, I assume.
What?
Again, this is like a playable cEDH card as normal. Okay,
I don't know
awesome.
what
Shit,
Aether. I don't know what Kaladesh plane cards are even CDH playable.
Okay.
To be
Aether,
honest.
shoot 50 big boom
Well,
man.
maybe it's playable.
Oh my
I
gosh!
mean, maybe. Do you not know yet?
No.
It's probably not the 50 damage artifacts, but I'll go ahead and say that one.
Oh, Aetherflux Reservoir.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think it was, but might as well shoot it out there.
Hmm.
Walking Ballista is probably not the flavor text, but that's okay.
Okay.
I still think it's probably blue-green. Oh, is it Rashmi? Maybe? Is Rashmi from that set? Okay.
Dude, this is a favorite. All right, so say it again, Kian.
A retreat to nature can inspire even the most jaded inventor.
A retreat to nature can inspire even the most jaded adventure. Oh, Mox Amber.
That was in Dominaria.
That was printed in Dominaria.
Yeah, but it was a good guess.
Oh, was it?
What is like?
You
what
guys
is,
haven't asked me what card this is yet.
What
do you mean?
So, the thing is, I feel like I should be able to grab this, right? Like,
Is
we
it a
should-
this
removal
is-
spell?
figure this out.
This is the card
what's-
that Kevin would play.
Me.
Oh, it's in Frog? Is it in Frog?
Maybe. No, it's not in Frog.
Frog.
not
Yeah, I don't recognize it.
It's not in Frog.
Is it a
If
removal?
I would play it. It's a piece of shit card.
No,
I'll tell
is
you
it a
that.
removal
not.
spell?
It's not a
It's
spell.
an assassin's.
It's not a spell.
It's a land.
It's a land. We guys
Emergent
are doing
zone.
land.
I was right.
Emergent zone.
No,
That was fucking.
that was our devastation.
Dragon Ball. Fucking big
What
dragon
lands are from?
We're doing a land
Fast
episode, and you
lands?
guys over here guessing
Man.
artifacts.
Fast lands. It's got to be the blue-green one, the UG one. I'm gonna consult Google. I don't know the name
Wait.
of it. Fast lands.
Wait. You think it's
Names.
no. You think it's an opponent land?
No,
Or you
no,
think
no,
it's the-
fast land.
So the
It's
land
the one that says if it's the third or less land, it comes in untapped.
2 or less.
2 or
Dark
less. 2 or less.
Swords, 2 or less. I thought it was 3 or less. If it's the third one, yeah, 2 or less. If it's the third or the less land, yeah. Botanical Sanctum, I'm gonna guess. Okay, that was my only guess. A land. Is it the shitty one that can crack for 4 mana to go get an artifact or something in your hand?
Urza Saga?
That's Inventor's Fair. We already said that. Bro.
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I already told you
Playable
the
lands
set,
are
and you're out here guessing. Yeah,
I don't know
so,
what. I don't know what
Yo,
land.
don't you say fucking guys. It's guy.
What playable land came out of the Kaladesh block? I have no idea.
I'm trying to think. I'm not. Oh, it's the fucking 5 mana one, isn't it? The stupid ass one. Spire of Industry, isn't it?
Oh, is that what it is? Is it
Go
Spire
ahead.
of Industry?
Thank you. It's not Spire of Industry.
Oh,
That
I was about to
fucking
say.
dumb feeling.
No, dude, that would have been.
It's
I
a
mean, that was
fast
a good
land.
guess.
that Kevin would play. Maybe.
Black green. The
Okay. There you
I don't
go.
know the
You're
name.
welcome.
I don't know what it's called. Fucking Google it. Blooming Marsh.
Yep.
How is that? That's such a weird flavor text for that. I never would have.
That is not a CDH. I don't think fast lands are CDH playable at this point.
Maybe. Who cares?
In 2 color lists they are.
If they what?
It's the same thing as the. It's the same thing as the fucking the 5 like the battle bond lands in 2 color basically.
Oh, it may be in two. Maybe a 2 color.
That's what I said,
That's
in
a
2 color.
stretch.
Wait,
I
two
would,
So, anyways,
color
guys,
lists
that
aren't great.
was flavor text. You get to watch these bozos guess the cards that I choose. So.
Okay,
yeah.
at least I was hitting closer
Yeah.
on the target.
Adam was
just like,
getting progressively farther away. He started in
he's like,
Dominaria, and then
is
was
this
like,
Slifer the Sky Dragon?
is this
It's a Porsche
Skithrix?
911.
Is it
Was that-
Skithrix?
Joe
now
Biden.
you're going backwards.
Joe Byron.
Joe Byron.
All right, what the fuck are we doing next?
It looks
Oh,
like
it's
you're
me.
you're gonna ask us a question about what we already talked about. I think.
Okay, the thing I've been teasing at all night, just poking away, making you fucking sore. Okay, what are some of the problems that can arise from us transitioning to a more greedy mana base? Oh boy, howdy. I mean, I started a bitch about it for a little bit. I mean, you just fall apart to stacks more easily, right? Like when you build a taller tower, you're building it out of glass. Like you can't really build a taller tower faster unless you make it shittier. Like you have to sacrifice quality to go bigger.
What
It's
are you
harder to
saying,
make
bro?
a
I'm a carpenter.
What
What
I'm
are we
saying is
talking
if you wanna
about
make,
here?
If you want to make 5 mana on turn 3, you have to start playing very questionable cards, right? Like if you want to make 10 mana on turn 1, you're playing some very, very sus cards. And like if the chain gets broken, you fucking lose. I know, imposter emoji. But like
Bum, bum.
you have to take this risk, right? Like when you're building these like crazy decks that want to make like a fucking bazillion mana on turn 1 and 2 and 3. Like you have to play cards that if you stumble, you've just wasted 4 cards doing nothing. So the answer is you get staxed out. But as we talked about, stacks doesn't fucking win. So like people aren't playing stacks. So what is the downside? I don't fucking know. The random mid-range deck that tutors for oof on turn 1?
I don't know. I think you touched on it. I think it's less of a gameplay and more. Wait, that doesn't make sense. I think it's like more mulligan, like dependent, like we were touching on before. Because I know, with like when I cut like a land out of blue farm, right? I was down to 27, and I got no fucking lands like whatsoever. Like that may just be like me shuffling wrong or whatever. But as soon as I bumped it up back to like 28, I was like, okay, now I'm getting like 2 to 3 lands is like actually playable now. So I think then also transitioning towards like a greedier mana base, right? We're cutting pips. or substituting pips, which are needed for like fast accelerants, which without like mana rocks or anything to actually spend that soul mana on is quite useless. Like you can sit there with like an Ancient Tomb and a City of Traders, and then you have like all double pip spells in your hand, which like for 4-color lists is kind of bad. At least that's what I've felt from like playing like City of Traders, but still on the card. It's still a great card, but that's just one of the downsides I feel. Like you substitute the fastness for pip.
I feel
you add
like
more randomness and variance, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you're adding more variance. I feel like you're just making yourself a little bit more vulnerable with a greedier mana base. There are games that you're going to just lose to mulligans, which is fine. You're going to take that loss percentage, right? Like I feel like that's kind of the direction that the format is headed in, where it's like, okay, 7% or 12% of my games, right, I just lose to bad draws, and that's fine. I'll accept that. But the other, 90 or to 80% of my games, I don't have any problems producing mana or creating mana, especially with the amount of card draw that we have in this format and the amount of card advantage that you can gain when you look at the commanders that are the most prevalent, things like Tymna and Crom, spells like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Esper Sentinel, and things like that. I mean, you can be so much more riskier than you could have in the past with the types of hands that you go off with. I mean, a 1-land Esper Sentinel hand is like gas nowadays. You'll take that any day. And so...
True, but the one dipshit that keeps a removal for the Esper Sentinel, like... if it
Or a
happens, you
misstep.
just fucking lose.
When have I ever
if you-
seen an Esper Sentinel get removed?
I've seen it get missteps. I'm with
Sure,
you.
I see
will
it get
misstep a
misstepped.
fish.
I mean,
I've
yeah.
seen it Esper Sentinel eat a removal spell, though. You're right in that.
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, and even, like, when a Rhystic Study gets removed or a Mystic Remora gets removed, it's usually already too late. Like, if you spend 3 mana on a Rhystic Study and you draw 3 cards, that's a good rate. A Mystic Remora pays for itself the first time someone feeds it. So it's just basically like with the amount of card advantage, mana acceleration, and things that exist in the format, it's just going to continue to get greedier, especially with the amount of treasures that we can produce out of nothing. 2 mana is like enough to win a game, because if you have a hand with a Dockside or a way to get one, people aren't really countering Docksides; they're countering what comes after the Dockside.
Dude, straight up, the number of fucking games I've seen someone keep, like Savannah, Esper Sentinel pass, and then turn 2 they fucking neoform into a Dockside and then do some dumb shit is just unreal.
Yeah, and that's why you're allowed to run a greedy mana base. I mean, fuck, even in like my Sans Red decks, like I have Phantasmal Image just to hit a Dockside when someone else plays one, because like the benefits and the acceleration it provides are just too broken. So like I don't know, the way that I see the format, I don't like, you run the risk of getting blown out, but like I mean, when you have cards like Dress Down and shit, like I mean, it's really easy to play around the cards that blow out fucking these greedy mana bases, and you can kind of just bide your time, because the deck that is normally like taking advantage of the fact that you have a greedy mana base usually isn't winning fast enough to stop you from pivoting, which is like the crazy part about it all.
I also think that you have to take the risk too, because everybody else is taking the risk. So if you don't take the risk, your chances of winning like decreases,
go down
substantially.
significantly. Yeah.
Something that we haven't mentioned that I think we should on the topic of greedy mana bases is it's not just the amount of lands that you run, but also the fact that like 90% of decks in the meta right now are on Tainted Pact mana bases.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, Blood Moon is not as prevalent as it used to be, but like with decks like Winota being as popular as they are and things like Magus of the Moon being in play, it is a scary thing to think about if you're not prepared for it. So
I've
it's
said for a while, the first like good deck that can Thoracle people and run Blood Moon and like back to basics, it would be a nasty deck. Like you show me a Grixis list. I don't think one exists at all, but you show me a Grixis list that can play under incredibly like strained mana because of Blood Moon and shit, like via basics or whatever. Like Blood Moon just fucking wins games. Like straight up, I have actually lost the game to turn 1 Blood Moon.
Yeah, it's so weird to think about because like the color combos that I think you would want would be like green,
It'd be
red,
Sans white.
or yeah, I mean sans white or just like green, red, blue, right? I don't know what that color combo is. Gruul with
Teamer.
blue, teamer, is that what it is?
Teamer.
Yeah, so I would think it would be like a teamer deck where you basically run like back to basics Blood Moon and fucking like maybe Hermit Druid, Hermit Druid, and you Thoracle Hermit Druid to win the game.
like it's all hypothetical, but if Yasharn had been like Teamer colors instead, like I would fucking run Blood Moon. Hell yeah, like I would run Land Hate out the ass, and then
That
have
card
a
would be
real
fucking
win condition.
bonkers if it was
It is
Teamer.
teamer, yeah. That'd be
But the
insane.
main point, not even the Land Hate, right? But just like the ability to tutor for 2 basics. Like
Right.
you give me a Teamer commander that fixes your mana base that works around Blood Moon. I think that deck then becomes very strong because, like, yeah, like a lot of decks genuinely, if you go turn 1 fucking Ritual into a Blood Moon or a Magus is less good, but like a lot of decks just go, oh, I fucking lose. I have all colorless lands now, and I can't win the game, and they just fucking they roll over and die. So you give me a Blood Moon deck that doesn't suck balls, I'm hype on it.
Unless like whenever Spencer plays Godo and he jams a Blood Moon, like it feels bad, but at least I know I have outs, right? Because I still have like Dockside, I still have like artifacts. There's still ways around it. It just sucks. Like it doesn't immediately hose you if you're in red at least, because you have like Dockside. I know in like Sans red you get like dorks and shit, but you don't if you don't have those out, you kind of get fucked on. But yeah, Blood Moon wins games.
Mm-hmm.
That it
Sadly, none of the decks that play it do.
Hey, Magda wins games.
It won 1 fucking tournament.
That's all you
Undefeated.
Where
need,
did that
baby.
deck go?
It's all
it,
you
it,
need.
it had its freaking glory
you need.
days.
That's all you need.
13 minutes of fame.
Yeah, basically.
And right there, that Magda shit, that's what I'm talking about, like in tournaments. Do you run a deck that just fucking sometimes randomly flips its coins to the top? Sometimes, yeah.
We're already
Well, it's pretty
discussing. It's a
consistent.
different episode.
Yeah. Anyways, so now that we've talked ad nauseum about some theories regarding a mana base, let's look into
Insert ad nauseum.
ad
joke.
nauseum joke.
Patreon.
Woo, woo, woo. Let's look into how having a consistent mana affects our play patterns of the deck, and what are some steps that we could take to avoid, or not avoid, but to help fix our play patterns as we transition to a greedier mana base. So I'll toss this one to Adam first, and then Kevin, and then I'll bring up the rear. I like the rear.
I mean, how like consistent mana affects the play patterns of decks, and what are some steps?
So, like, I'm guessing that the question is effectively, like, now that you know that people are going to play greedier mana bases, like, what do you preemptively do to, like, to fuck yourself over? Like what have you changed about your deck or how you play or how you mulligan?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to like run a basic of each type in my library, just like in case. I don't do that shit anymore, man. Like, lately, man, like I deserve to be punished. I'm the guy running the greedy mana base at this point, you know? So, like, I haven't really changed a whole lot. I run Tainted Pact mana bases specifically for cards like Praetor's Grasp to make them more viable. So I can Praetor's Grasp things like other people's Tainted Pacts and win with my own Thoracle. You know, shit like that. Makes, like, yeah, I haven't really adjusted my play patterns at all towards greedier mana bases, to be fair. Like, I run decks with Oof because I think Oof is a good way to buy yourself some time if you're a slower strategy. I think that's like a good way to kind of punish other people's greedier mana bases. But I've been balls to the walls, man. Like,
Then
Tainted
how
Pact
did
mana
you change
bases
your
and-
play pattern as you transition towards greedier mana base?
well, I
Keep
just
more counter spells because you know people are going to try to win faster. Like, you know,
yeah, I mean, I guess like while transitioning to greedier mana bases, I think the biggest thing is like building NBC decks as best as you can. NBC decks being like no bad cards, so you cut all the mana that you feel is unnecessary. You cut a lot of the interaction or mid-range pieces that aren't really like super beneficial. Like a Darcy in a blue farm deck is like a good example. Like, how necessary is it? Not super necessary, right? So like cutting cards like that, and then packing more interaction and more win the game cards, like running Mnemonic Betrayal cards that we've talked about in the past or things like that, can really help your draws become more consistent, especially with having like less lands and a greedier mana base to then attempt more wins as the game progresses. Is like definitely a way. And then like just making strong mulligans. Like I try to mulligan to at least 2 lands. If I can mulligan to 2 lands, that's usually a great way to progress the game, I would say, and like consistently be able to cast your spells. If your opener has 2 lands, there's good odds that you're going to draw a 3rd land by your 3rd turn, and then you can really like start playing the game at that point, is what I would say. I don't know how you guys have changed.
Side question. With the increase in popularity of soul lands and what I like to call YOLO mana, which is shit like Lotus Petal, like, not quite LED. LED is different. But, like, you know, things that make mana like a flash in the pan and then it's gone. How, and with people keeping greedier hands, do you think that wheels should be or have seen more play, right? Because with the greater chance of casting a wheel turn 1 and the higher effectiveness of fucking your opponent's, ooh, they kept a 6, like they finally got a good hand after 2 mulligans, like, wheel that motherfucker into the trash and try again. Like, do you think the wheels are more powerful now than they used to be because of this two-sided effect where you can cast them faster and they have a better effect against your opponents? Thoughts?
Wheels are really weird, man. Wheels are in a tough spot for me because I don't know what camp I sit in. I don't know if I sit in camp wheels are bad or camp wheels are good. Because like if you have card draw in the command zone, I think wheels are kind of shit in your deck because you can consistently like fill your hand enough that giving your opponents cards is nothing you want to do. You want your opponents to be strapped on resources, not have enough cards in hand to play the game, and then you are gaining this incremental card advantage that ends up blowing them out the water. I think in decks that don't have that type of card advantage, so decks like Rogsai, decks like the Dami Mommies or Timna Rog, like those decks that don't have card advantage in the command zone but are, or like a good card advantage in the command zone, I should say, because like not all Timna decks have good card advantage. Like wheels are infinitely better in those strategies because your card quality is so high that the 7 cards you're getting should be infinitely better than the 21 cards your opponents get. So, and I have seen like wheels perform great lately. Like, I don't know. I have like this theory that usually one spell is enough to stop someone's win attempt. That's like a thing I've been testing lately. Is like usually you only need 1. And I've seen people get blown the fuck out by 1 spell, like a lot. But like the more I've been playing, the more I'm seeing like someone will wheel and no one will interact, and then they go to attempt a win con and no one has interaction because of it got wheeled away. Yep. Yeah, so it's such a weird, wheels are such a gray area for me, man, because like they're so hard to evaluate, and I don't know if I can give you like a solid answer to that question.
I'll give you a solid answer, Kevin. Wheel good, 7 cards good.
Really good.
That's all I need to say. But Adam
That's
did
fair.
touch.
Go on.
Adam did touch on like good points, right? Because there's always like that gray area. How good are they? How are they more beneficial to me than my opponents? And like I think that's like what you have to look at when you first evaluate, or when you start evaluating wheels, or like really looking at it to like a deeper level. Because like obviously you have like Windfall, Wheel of Fortune, right? If you're in those colors, you're obviously playing those cards, right? Because why not? Like you'd just be stupid not to be playing those. But then you dive into like Time Twister's obviously a hot topic. We've discussed Time Twister ad nauseum on other episodes. And then another one in red is like Wheel of Misfortune, right? So when you're looking at those 2 cards, it's like, do I really need to be running these cards? Is there other cards more beneficial, or is just that straight like draw 7 just where I want to be at? And is my card value density higher than my opponents, or is it just high in general that drawing that 7 cards will allow me to win the game faster? Which in most cases, I think it's yes.
My modified question was basically like, in decks that do like wheels, have you noticed an increase in like them feeling even better because of the mana base greed?
I mean, wheels feel good regardless. I mean,
like in the
decks
that like, in the decks I mentioned, I mean, wheels are fucking so gas. Wheels are enough to just win the game. Like a fresh 7 is like, oh, it got
for
me
sure.
there. Yeah.
Also, Kian, you're leaving my boy Dark Deal off the table. That's a black wheel. It's playable.
Hey!
It's not playable.
We don't mention that one, okay? It's under the table.
Also, Adam, another question for you. In Magic, are there more doors or wheels? Thoughts?
Doors, 100%. I mean, what? There's what's the big door? Door to Destinies? Door of Destinies?
Door of Destinies.
Door to Nothingness, bro. The best cEDH staple.
I actually have a Door to Nothingness deck, so you can't even talk to me about that. But are we feeding Aggie treats right now?
Oh, we got dogs on deck right now. It's like feeding catfish right now. I fucking open the bag and they're like,
Oh, is Trent in there too?
Trey,
Trey.
you big old soft man.
Trey.
He's right here. He's fuzzing it up. Sorry, they started getting barky. I gotta feed them.
It's all right.
Work.
But yeah, that's like how I don't know. That's how I analyze that question. I don't know if you guys want to touch on it anymore.
I mean, I don't think I really play any differently. Like, I mean, I don't know. When I played Nagila, I was like, fuck it. And again, we've bitched about this. You didn't like it. I run Tarnished Citadel because I'm greedy. I don't give a fuck if it hits me for 3. Like, and I'm with you. I'm a full greed ahead. I don't give a shit. Send that ship to harbor and fucking go blast. Like, I don't give a fuck if I'm at 1 life. I don't care if I discard cards. I don't care if I sack all my lands. If I win, I win. And so I'm all aboard the green train. And as I said, like, it's fucking ruined me with Blood Moon. I think the thing I've done is I've just abandoned any care in the world if I get fucking blown out. I just don't care. It's not worth, like, building my deck any different because, like, you can't plan for every contingency. Like, I just accept that, like, oh, if they're going to play some dumb fucking strip mine on turn 1, like, I just lose. Like, this is game over. Like, I no longer care. It's a mental game of this fucking cEDH is a mockery and we just all roll dice and see what happens. It's a more complicated Krark. That's what it is.
Yeah.
There's like a funny copy pasta that's going around that's like the year is 2033 and the pod is just all Rog Silas players and the game is determined by the dice roll. No one even plays cEDH anymore. They just roll dice and shuffle up. It's just like,
I mean, that's
Even
basically what
fucking
it's gonna be.
joking.
I don't think I've changed how I played. I just feel like I have more faith in my mana base. I guess you would say, like, I'm gonna get the colors I need.
Kian, I fucking saw you so many times. You'd be like, and you'd like hand me your hand, and it would be a piece of shit. It would be a real fucking pile of shit, just worthless. And I'm like, Kian, you can't fucking play this. And you'd be like, believe in the deck, bro. And you'd rip a fetch off the top, and suddenly that deck is fucking.
Bro, what was that?
And,
That
like,
was like, I remember
Rog
showing you
Silas days.
that Rog hand. It was turn 1 add-ons with protection, no lands. I was like, I'm gonna rip a land off the top. City of Brass.
fucking did.
Let's go, baby.
You had about a fucking 2 and 5 to do it, and you did.
I will say that lately I do feel like super confident in my mana bases. Like it's getting to a point where I'm like, oh, are we like starting to solve high color mana bases to the point where like like we're hitting consistency now? Because like
it took us long enough. Goddamn, Timna Thrasios has been out for fucking 6 years now, dude.
yeah,
just
I'm
figuring
just
this
like
shit out.
More than that. It was like
Just in-
2016.
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah,
2022.
And math.
But it's just like, yeah, it definitely feels like no matter what list I'm playing lately, it's just like, okay, mana doesn't ever feel like an issue anymore. I mean, it does happen. Like there's games, like I just played on Alan's stream and got mana screwed 3 games in a row on Tim.
It happens, but most of the time,
yeah.
we're chilling. I got double
Yeah,
white and I got double blue. That's all I need. Let's go.
I think one thing people also don't have a good grasp of is like just probability in general, and it's something that I stress a lot. There's some interesting thing college professors will do. Well, they'll tell like a class like go flip 200 coins and then just like write down the results. And the professors will always fail the cheaters, and they're like, "How'd you know I cheated?" And it's some long, boring thing, but basically the probability of rolling like 7 heads in a row is pretty fucking likely when you roll 200, right? So like when you're playing a game of Magic, like what's the chance that you get like a bunch of shitty hands, like maybe 10%, 5%, whatever, but like you might hit 4 or 5 games in a row where you're like, man, my mana base feels like dog shit, and you'll make changes to your deck, when in reality that was just a short spree in what would otherwise be a very consistent mana base, you know? So, like, this shit is hard to do because you play like 15 games and you make a decision on something when really you should have played 500 games before you like truly understand what the mana base feels like.
And like the variance there with like the like shuffling and like grouping, like a lot of players like you have like your lands like out here. Whatever
What
you
the
have
fuck
your lands, you have your lands like out, right, like all spread out, and then you just pick them all up at once and then shuffle. Like that gets clumped, and that may like impact like the variance that you see.
I talked with you about this because people genuinely fucking forget that like your card sleeves get sticky and they stick together, and when you slide all your lands into one pile and shuffle, you're off. You're probably not a professional poker dealer. You're probably not good at shuffling compared to what you should be. And you're probably also having your lands stick together because your fucking sleeves are dirty.
Well, it's why people go on runs in tournaments, right? Like you'll get one good hand, like one really good game where you have all your best pieces in play at once. You'll shuffle, and in the next hand you have two of those pieces in your opener already because like they stay consistent, they stay together. So like I don't know, it's like it's like a variance thing that happens in cEDH. Like nothing's perfect, and there's a lot of human error involved. So. Like that shit just happens
just get
a lot.
automatic fucking deck shufflers, the mechanical ones.
I'm not putting my
let's put your
cards
frog
in
deck in there and see what happens.
Oh, is that a Judge Promo's Gaia Cradle? Oops, the machine just ripped it in half.
Oopsie daisy. That's the next layer of Krark randomness in fucking cEDH. Is just your deck might just fucking explode one day.
See, in 2020, in 2040, we're gonna have an automatic deck shuffler for all cEDH tournaments. You just plug it in. Put the deck in, and then
when do I get the fucking Yu-Gi-Oh like holo deck where I get to summon the big ass monsters and shit, and I don't even need a deck. It's
at a
just
certain point, like
digital.
Magic's just going to be NFTs, and no one will own a physical deck anymore.
That's what fucking MTGO already is, bro. The shit's been gone for a while.
Yeah, but
that
MTGO,
is true.
Like has a bad user interface. Although apparently MTGO, did you guys hear that they're updating it like for a format focus on EDH specifically? They're basically going to like Cube and EDH. They're going to prioritize on MTGO, and Arena's going to be used for other formats.
Good fuck Arena.
So it's going to be. I mean, yeah, but I guess I'd like to put out a disclaimer that like, don't take our advice for anything. Like, we're
None
not.
of us are good. We've not won a single tournament.
We're not like experts in the format by any means, but like we're definitely enfranchised players, and like we're just sharing the opinions that we have on like mana bases and stuff like that. This also isn't like a very insightful episode. Like we threw down a bunch of random statistics and just like talked about what we think works because that's what we do when we build decks.
That's like it's a lot of feeling, right? Because as I said, like probability isn't a game of like you can't just take a small sample. You have to take a shitload of samples. No one's out here playing fucking 15,000 games with Kenrith. You know, maybe fucking Alex is.
Okay, Alex is definitely doing
15,000 games with Kenrith. And, like, with probability, like, you know, and Magic is a very random game, so probability is a very serious part of understanding the game. So, like, if you don't play 1,000 games with Thrasios and with a specific mana base, you're not going to understand exactly whether you need 22 blue pips or 23 blue pips in your lands, you know? So, it's just whatever feels good, but, like, you should use some math to back up like what you're doing. Like you should
also,
at least
like,
kind of
science also or like math like doesn't always tell the truth sometimes too. Like it could be statistically the right thing, but the way you play and your play patterns, it's you might want to be casting more green spells than blue spells, but the math tells you to run more blue pips. It's like, well, maybe it's not meant for your play style and you need to build your mana base around how you play as a player. I mean, I did that. Yeah, I did that with a lot of decks that I brewed early on, where I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do, not what people tell me to do, and it worked for me. Like I was winning games, but then like you learn like it might win games in bad metas, but like when you get to higher levels, there's a different type of like I don't know. Your deck has to be built to different constraints, and I think like we all are starting to learn that as we continue to play more and more often, and like fucking more consistently, because like I've been playing more Magic now than I have in a while, you know, and I think that like getting a little more invested in the online community is definitely attributing to that, you know, like there's tournaments going on like every couple of weeks now, which is kind of insane. Speaking of, because we're kind of wrapping up here, I guess we'll mention some of the stuff that's going on. I know that Chaos 5 is going on November 5th. I think that the Playing with Power Proving Grounds is going on like the 15th and the 6th. No, the 15th is today. It's next week, so it's like the 21st. So like right after the Playing with Power Mox, I think it's called the Mox Bowl. Right after that is Chaos 5, and then right after that is Oktoberfest. Oh, we forgot to mention we're going to Oktoberfest too.
We're going
all
to
three of us.
Oktoberfest.
We got like 3 listeners.
November.
At this point, it's just Scorish 2 times going through for the fucking flavor text.
We at least have 10. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. We have 17 patrons now, which is awesome. So like we at least have like some dedicated listeners.
We're
which is
proud
really
of
cool
this
to see.
Dude, it's
community.
crazy. I can't believe people show up damn near every week.
Here, wait. Let's check since
To
we're
watch
getting
our
all
bullshit.
sappy here.
To watch basically just 3 idiots stand up here that haven't done anything like major in the cEDH world and just sit here and talk about.
Well,
dumb
wait.
shit,
We
bro.
got one
Beat up
deck.
fucking
We have one deck on the
14-year-olds for a wheel
DDB
fortune.
currently. We have one deck on the DDB. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit. We're 4 subscribers away from 300, which is pretty sick.
Wookie, dude, let's go.
So once this video
We can
drops,
do a
we'll probably
Leonidas thing.
hit 300 like once this video drops. So that's really exciting. And then like our Discord's like at 350 right now, which is fucking crazy. Who in the Discord is not
Discord's
subscribed?
Yeah,
by
what
the
the
way, you gotta fucking get on that shit.
Yo, we're
We're gonna check every Discord
announcement is out right now at everyone.
Get your papers.
Yeah, but yeah. Other than that, I don't know. That was a fun topic. It was a little bit like, I don't know. It's a little difficult to talk about because there's so many unknowns. I feel like people love talking about absolutes when it comes to mana, and it's like none of this shit is fucking absolute. There's so much variance in the format, and like you can't just like be like this is the perfect thing. It's like no, it's not. Like it changes. Like you could change one card in your think about that. You could slot out a card in your list, and it could fuck up your perfect mana base that you have because you changed like a pip density color. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. There's just so much variance in when it comes to deck building and shit like that. That like I don't know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that people don't really understand. That's like they go off of intuition and feel. They don't really know how that works, and like. I guarantee if we made a fucking just a 1 hour like here's how to fucking decide your pips video and use a little bit of math to back it up, people would probably like it, because like people don't really discuss. They don't say why they do things. They're just like I've played this deck forever. I'm fucking smart. Fuck you. Listen to me. And like sure you're probably right, but like can you give me some just like here
Some
there's
reasoning.
a 85% chance you get a green on turn 2 like because modern players like when I played modern. God damn, dude, people would write entire fucking, dissertations on why they played one extra land that taps for black. And I'm like,
and then they still
thanks,
lose.
dude. Yeah.
The amount of
But
like
they put
written
the effort
content.
in, damn it.
Yeah, the amount of
Bro,
written
I just
content
watched a
in, like,
recent
65.
modern thing. It's all like Jeskai Breach gets Monkey and Ledger Shredder grinding station breach lines. It's like how is this fair in this format?
You're just playing like you're basically playing like cEDH but with 4 copies of everything now, and just like consistency is like goes like in cEDH consistency goes out the window, and like you have to run tutors and shit to get it, and in 60 card it's just like oh I have the win in my hand on turn 2 always. Yeah, I don't know. We should get into 60 card. I want to get into like Pioneer and shit.
I still want to play Vintage, man.
I'm doing Legacy, so
Fuck, all right. We all have different wants, I guess, whatever. But other than that, let's move to our cleanup step and kind of end this one off here.
Discard stack more.
For those of you that haven't already joined our Discord, seriously, we've said it like 1,000 times at this point. Come in there, come hang out with us. We're playing games all the time. We have like a cool community with people all over the world. We got friends in Germany. We got friends in Denmark. We got friends in Australia. The Australia homies we've been playing games with lately. They've been super cool. Shout out to Moop, showing me some cool decks, kicking my ass every once in a while. But yeah, we pride ourselves on being like a really active community in the content space. And we love the feedback that we get from everybody in our Discord. We have a place for episode discussions where you can give us feedback on every episode. Let us know how we're doing. And what you'd like to see and what you'd like to see improved. And then make sure that you drop a comment, leave a review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We've gotten like tons of really good reviews on there. It's helping push our content out there. We get tons of new viewers because of it. And so make sure if you have the opportunity to leave us a review there, as it helps us to continue to reach new audiences through the algorithm. And before I say goodbye, I want to give a shout out to a couple of our patrons that offered us questions for this week's episode. So I believe we had Scorish, we had Mark, we had Aphelion, we had Tom, we even had Eric, all offer input into like this week's episode and some questions for us to answer. So shouts out to you guys for helping us out. And with that, we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
What about our fish?